Welcome everybody back to another episode of the show here on the DPT to CEO podcast and YouTube series and Facebook series as well. That's where we're recording to today. I'm super excited to bring to you a special guest, and we'll introduce her in just a second. But on this series, we are interviewing other practice owners and other therapists who have gone into business for themselves and just learn more about their story and what they've done and what they've liked and what they've learned through the process, in order to help you do something that you want to do as well. And before we dive into it, too, tiny little plug here. If you are a therapist or a healthcare provider out there and you would like to start your own solo practice, like me and our special guest, Sam, and you'd like help doing it, please check out my website at morganmeese.com. And I have all kinds of resources, blog posts, downloads, and I also do a business coaching program, surprise, called DPT to CEO, that can help you go from zero to a full caseload. All right, so without further ado, welcome, drum roll, special guest, Dr. Samantha Ritz. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Morgan. It's honestly full circle because I don't know if you knew this actually, but I actually found you by starting to listen to your podcast. So yes, a year ago, I was these people who are watching the podcast who hadn't started their business yet and just thinking, if they can do it, I can do it. So, and here I am now. I'm on kind of full circle. Now I'm on a guest on this podcast. So it really is just so great to be here today.
I feel like this is a perfect example of like manifesting what you want to have happen.
For sure. I was definitely manifesting, writing it down, journaling, all those negative thoughts, just trying to get into the back of my brain and just make the leap. And and here we are. So it's been great.
Yay. Yeah. Now we're having a great time. And it also it feels like I just met you like 3 months ago, but it's been like both a long and short time at the same time. We met in August of last year.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know it just feels just like yesterday, but then at the same time, like I've known you for a long time, but I think it's just because we've been through so much already together, like the growth in the beginning of a whole new business. And you're the one who convinced me to quit my job.
That was crazy. Oh my gosh.
That was crazy.
That. I tell people that story where I'm like, Sam and I met and then she quit her job the next day.
I did. I mean, I just needed someone like push me over the edge. And I'm so thankful. I can't really put it into words just how thankful I am just to have someone in my corner and knowing there's always someone who can be like, you can do this, It's just been so great and just paid for itself over and over and over again.
Yeah. Well, let's rewind a little bit and let's tell our listeners the context. So, Sam, tell us a little bit more about you and your career and then what kind of led you to start your own practice.
Yeah, of course. So I graduated in 2022. So I graduated with my doctorate at UNT Health Science Center here in Fort Worth, Texas. And I just took, like most people, took that outpatient job right out of school, new grad salary, new grad hours, and then basically, the first couple months really loved it, to be honest. I love being a physical therapist. That's never been the issue. But once that caseload really started to grow, started to get a little bit more difficult, I would say I was maybe 3 months into working at the clinic and my clinic director went out on paternity leave and had zero plans, had a student. So took the student, took over the clinic, and for 1 month, we just tried to make it work. And we did. So it was chaotic, but I was like, wow, I can do this. And then at the end of the year, he was leaving, opened another clinic. They were hiring for a clinic director and everyone told me I should just go up for the job, even though I just started working there in May. And this is November of that same year. So put my name out there, ended up getting the job. Really, really excited. I mean, I was so excited about it. Started that January and had someone who was supposed to come back from maternity leave who didn't come back, couldn't find anyone to hire, no one wanted to take the low pay, to be honest. It was just really low pay. And then, and so I just made it work. I think 1 week I saw 101 patients by myself, no student. I mean, that's just me. So me and my tech, I think, finished on Friday, cried a little and went and got margaritas.
Yeah, I bet.
And then that was that. So I was becoming a little bit unhappy, but I just love what I did. And I signed a 2-year contract with a signing bonus that I would have to pay back if I quit. So I was really trying to make it to that 2-year point, but I had just been listening to Morgan's podcast and a couple of other things. And I knew I always wanted to open my own business, and I really wanted to make it 3 years before I opened my own. Just I felt like that was a good amount of time to kind of learn the ins and outs of the industry. And then I talked to Morgan in August, and so I would have made a year and a half. Talked to her in August and was just like, I am exhausted. I don't know how much longer I can do this. And we just kind of talked about the pros and cons of, staying or leaving. And I decided it was time. I had a couple patients who kind of asked me when I was going to start my own thing. And so it's the validation. It wasn't just like I jumped off a cliff, I had done a little bit of research, but it is still really scary to go from salary to zero salary. But yeah, then I decided, let's do it. So I signed with Morgan. We started building the business. I had to put my 4 weeks notice in, and then took a week off after I quit, and then started my business 2 weeks later. And I actually had patients the very first week, which was really, really exciting. So we just kind of hit the ground running, building the business, all of that. And then, yeah, I guess I don't know how many months later, and here I am and running my business, full time. I do a little bit of PRN on the side, but mostly my own thing. And it's been great.
That's awesome. And tell us a little bit more about your practice and like what kind of patients you see.
Yeah. So my practice is function physical therapy. We specialize in tennis and pickleball injury. So I was a college tennis player, and I play pickleball and tennis still to this day. So that's something I've always been really passionate in, and I just really love treating this patient population. So that's what we do. I am mobile outpatient. So I go to people's homes. I do dry needling, cupping, soft tissue, all of that. And I absolutely love it. I didn't know how I would feel about being in the car so much, but I'm a podcast girly. So I just put on my podcast, go to my patients, and there's just a little bit of a time freedom there that I really missed whenever I worked in outpatient. I never thought I would be that person that could just go play tennis in the middle of the day when I wanted to. And now I can. So it's just been great. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Like I catch myself a lot, like thinking about how like either like I'm in the gym for like several hours a day at like all times of day, or like even just like the simple fact that like I can take my dog for a walk at like 11 a.m., like in the middle of working and everything, and be outside. That was one of the worst things for me, like working in outpatient, is like I would drive to work when it was still like dark in the morning, and then be in the clinic for whatever 10 hours it was, and then leave work and it was dark outside. And I'm like, that's just, I don't want to live like that.
No, it was, and I will say that sometimes, with this journey, it's hard to be a business owner. It's not just
Yes.
like sunshines and rainbows all the time, and it's difficult sometimes. But then, yeah, exactly. Like I'm not working 7 to 7, or yeah, I can just play in the middle of the day, because I play tennis still to this day, and I play with a lot of country club ladies, and they don't work. I mean, a lot of them do work, but some don't. And you're just like, who, we're all out here playing at 11 on a Tuesday. And I'm like, what do we all do for a living? This is great. And before, I remember I would always ask people, like, what job do you have that you can just play on Wednesday? I remember I was living for the weekend, and, that's a saying, but now I every day is mine. And so now it used to be Monday through Friday wasn't mine, and I wouldn't make plans, and I was exhausted. And now 7 days of the week, I enjoy. I truly do. It's great. I'm so happy I did this.
It's so, like we of course we need to make money in the business. We need to be profitable. We need to be able to take care of ourselves. And like something that I think is sometimes like passed over is just like the value there is in like having the freedom and flexibility that you do every day. Like you said, like every single day is yours. You're in charge of everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, like all the things. But every single day when you wake up, you get to decide what to do, and you don't have to be somewhere just because somebody else told you to. And there's a lot of value in that too.
So much. Yeah. I think that's the number one benefit I've gotten from all of this. It's just having my time freedom back. It's amazing. I honestly never thought I would have it, because, your whole life, your time is to school, your time is to, high school, then it's college, and then if you're PT, then it's grad school, and then you go to outpatient, and then it's your jobs. And so it honestly was like, I felt like I started a new life, because it's like, wow, this, I honestly started to value other things in my life, like my relationships changed, and my hobbies changed, because I felt like now everything really is mine, and I don't have to be constantly putting myself second, or, because of the money, because of the job, or something like that. So yeah, really changed my mindset on a lot of things, even just changing the job.
Yeah, man. I feel like we could just the two of us could just go on and on about this stuff. I can like picture us like sitting in like two like pool chairs and just like with
Oh, for sure.
margarita and like living the life at 11 a.m. on a Tuesday and being like,
For
ah,
sure.
what a good
For
decision we
sure.
made.
If we lived in the same state, we would definitely have to do that.
100%. And well, speaking of mindset though, like you said, not everything is like sunshine and rainbows. There are some potentially like downsides, or there can be places where like your mindset can be not super positive. So tell us a little bit more about like your mindset on like the journey of being a business owner and like how it kind of like started, how it's changed over time, and like more about where it is now.
Yeah, of course. So, well, my mindset when I first started was I know nothing. So, really, really great to have. Like, I would recommend always having a business coach because I think that I don't know if I actually could have done it without having a business coach because there's just so much going on. And sometimes you just need a checklist. Sometimes you just need someone being like, okay, let's just knock these things out first because it's really easy to get overwhelmed, especially in healthcare because you have to get your MPI set up. You have to get all these liability things together. And then once you get through that, then it's like, okay, now it's a little bit of a smooth kind of like now we're rolling. And for me, I had a really good first 2 months. I mean, because I was new and I'm well known in my community. So I had a really good first 2 months. And then it was the end of the year. And now everyone's met their deductibles. And it's like, why pay for cash? Cash therapy, you can use your insurance. And so I was really slow in November and December. And that was extremely hard. I was surprised at how hard being slow was for me. I thought I would love it, have all this free time. I know it's going to come back and it's going to speed up, but I really struggled. I felt like I needed to fill my day with something. And then I was getting frustrated and I was reaching out to people. And, it wasn't happening at the time because it's going to happen later, in 2024. But yeah, that was really difficult for me. So I struggled a little there. And then at the end of the year, coming into this year, I kind of had to sit down with myself. It's like, okay, what are our goals? What's realistic? What can we really do? And then after that, it's been a lot better. And then the winter was slow and then spring just is busy. So I think mindset shift was really, really hard for me. Productivity isn't everything. I'm very type A. So I value myself and my worth with how productive I am during the day and with work. And with this type of business, it's not always going to match up. So sometimes it's like, okay, yes, I'm doing all this stuff, but I'm not seeing the benefits yet because I'm going to see them later, and having to kind of come to terms with that. I think now I'm finally there, especially in like November through January. That was really difficult for me because I was doing all this back end stuff that I knew was going to pay off in the future, but I wasn't getting the payout right then. That was pretty difficult.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because like the way that you're going to get like consistent good results in your business is by putting in like consistent good work, but it's always delayed. It's like never at the same time. And so especially when it comes to like marketing stuff and everything, like all the effort you put in now, you'll see the results of, 2, 3, 6 months from now, but like our current time brain wants to see results right now, or just like feelings of success, right? And so like I think in and around what you're saying about like valuing yourself and like your self-worth with like how productive you're being, you sort of have to figure out different ways to feel successful. And like I've found for me, like it's a very like active decision process and something I have to like actively participate in with myself, I guess, is like deciding what I'm going to determine was a successful day. And sometimes it means like sitting on the computer doing stuff for 8 hours, like until a project is done. And sometimes it's just I had 5 appointments yesterday and got nothing else done because I was exhausted, and it was still a successful day, And like that's kind of like an interesting shift. And I was talking to another student in the program yesterday about this, where like she was talking about how like she's having a hard time transitioning from like the feeling of working full time for somebody else, where like you have to be working constantly. Like there's just like this kind of like implied expectation that if you're not working constantly for like 40 or 50 hours a week, it's not good enough, but when you work for yourself, you're gonna have weeks where you probably are working a ton. You're also gonna have weeks where maybe you work 10 hours, and like you have to figure out a way to like be okay with that in yourself and know that things are going to be fine.
Right. Yeah. That was definitely difficult for me whenever I was slower, and how am I gonna, like, in my head I was like, I have to fill this time, and then once you can make that mindset shift to, it's like, it's okay, it's okay to maybe take an hour, maybe read a book, and then you can go back to work. Or
Mhm.
it's just, you're just not used to having that freedom. You
Mhm.
almost have to accept it. Like, even though you have it, you have to accept that you really do have it.
Yeah, and then nobody's like breathing down your neck and like looking at like your productivity or whatever, and like, yeah, like we want to be making the money, but more than that, like if you're happy and healthy, your family's happy and healthy, like you have a roof over your head, you have food, like everything's fine,
Right.
and you don't have to be just constantly like a hamster on a wheel just because that's how we've felt before. There's so much I think that we could get into with that, like the mindset shift and transitioning to a place where like you can work your business around your life and not have to work your life around what you do for your career, which is
For
like a
sure.
huge difference.
Yeah, it's having blocks on my schedule that are my blocks. Was hard
Yeah.
for me at first to put it down, honestly, to really actually be like, this is my time. So now, now I'm okay with that. It's like I can put that block, or I can have book club, or I can go play it, go play tennis. And I just felt like in my head I could not do that. Even though I was my own boss, I was just like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, what am I doing here? But yeah, you definitely have to take, honestly take accountability for yourself. And if you're like, I know I can still get my stuff done, then why is that an issue? I am not a morning person. I am a late night person. So seeing all this stuff where it's like you have to be productive in the morning, well, that just honestly doesn't work for me. So I'd rather work from 6 to 8 and get some stuff done after dinner. And that was hard for me to kind of come to terms with as well, because I felt like I wasn't being productive because I wasn't that morning person who got up at 7 a.m. and went for a run. And then I'm the opposite. So yeah, just kind of taking accountability for yourself. That's the main thing.
Yeah, and I think that that's something I want to ask, like, because that's like it's kind of a learned skill, right? Like it's almost like a muscle that you have to train.
Mhm.
How have you figured out ways to be accountable to yourself and like maintain your boundaries?
Yes, that's a great question. It was hard for me at first, to be honest. I am very type A. I'm very checklisty. Staying accountable to myself was actually harder than staying accountable to a boss at first, because I felt like I could give myself so much grace because it's me, right? And so I had to stop just setting goals, or like setting checklist things and being like, I can get to this whenever, because I would always push it back. And I was surprised. I actually was really surprised at myself that I did that. And so I had to, generally I had to have like someone check in with me. So that's why whenever I was working with you, it was so great, because I knew I had my check in. So I was like, I had to get it done by that week. So
Yeah.
now that I don't have that as much anymore, I make sure that I'm setting like deadlines with somebody, that I have to check in with them, and they're like, okay, this project is happening. This is the timeline. And that's been really helpful. But yeah, definitely setting my own, checkpoints, and then me being the one that has to be accountable. That was difficult at first. So I feel like now I will definitely make sure that my checkpoints have to happen, because the next step has to happen after that. It's been beneficial for me to break down things. So I did that like 365-day calendar thing, where
Mhm.
you create this whole calendar for 365 days. And then, so like, let's say you want to write a book by the end of the year, then you can break it down throughout the year, and it becomes easier to do, right? Because in 2 months you have to just write this many chapters and stuff like that. So I took that philosophy and then I put it to my smaller goals. And that's been really helpful. So being able to have like those bite-sized chunks where do this in 2 days versus do
Mhm.
this in 2 weeks was a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that idea, and it does take time to get to a place where you feel like you can like look at the whole year, but even like taking the time to look at the next like 3 to 6 months and figure out what the big goal is, and then break it down into smaller and smaller pieces and put it on your calendar so you know when to do what. I think it eliminates so much decision fatigue for when
Mhm.
like you're actually like executing on things, that makes it easier to get things done too. Like I've also found like this year I've been meeting with one of my friends like usually like twice a quarter, where we go over like all of our annual goals together and like our quarter goals. And so it's kind of like an accountability buddy accountability buddy to help with that. It's like low key accountability to somebody else, where 3 months ago I said I was going to do this thing and now we're having our meeting. Did I do the thing or not? So that's been helpful too.
I like that. Yeah. And it's nice when it's a friend, because it's not the end of the world. Like if you don't get it done, but you are going to feel a little bit mad at yourself
Yeah.
if you don't finish it. So
Yeah.
I like that. I might start to implement that in my own life as well.
Yeah. It's a good time. It's nice to like, sit down and discuss everything and talk about what's gone well, and celebrate the wins and everything. I think that's a big part of like not mindset too, like with the business, is I've been taking more time this year to like acknowledge my wins and like things that have gone well and like the goals that I've met, but like multiple times. So not just like me like, oh yeah, I did that and like moving on, but
Right.
like I did it, I did it, I did it. Guess what? I did it. And like
That's fair.
celebrating
I love
that.
that.
It's just like the more reps like really helps to cement that. Okay, but one thing that I do want to ask, as far as being like cash-based practice owner, because inquiring minds want to know, tell us about your experience like learning how to sell physical therapy for cash and how that's gone.
So I'm very grateful because my target audience is like country club, tennis, pickleball members. So, I definitely think that, you need to pick a niche where the client base is there. I think that, especially with cash-based therapy and here in Texas, so we don't have full direct access here. We have 10 days, 2 weeks. That's also been something as well. So someone can't just come to me cash-based. They still need a referral. So a lot of times you are dealing with people, they're like, well, my doctor takes insurance and they're saying this clinic that they always send everybody to takes insurance. So like, why should I go to you? I say that's why niching up is so important, because I'm the tennis and pickleball specialist here. No one else does that in the Metroplex. You need to make sure that you are valuable, and I always tell my patients is whenever I worked in outpatient, it was, I got 10, maybe 15 minutes with you. There's 3 other people in there. I have a tech, and that's just how it had to be. I'm a very big believer in manual therapy. I know not everybody is that way, but I am. My patients just get better faster, in my opinion. And, that's just my personal opinion. So with my cash-based practice, I always say, you get me for an hour. You get my brain and you get my hands. And that's really what I went to school for. Like, yeah, I have a great personality. Yeah, we can hang out, all this stuff. And I can show you exercises and, but you can learn a lot of that stuff on your own. So it's really my brain, the education, and then so that's honestly the basis of how I sell my packages. And I think that it goes over really well because these people are like, well, you can't get this anywhere else. And I come to you. So I think that what I charge is really not bad at all. And I've had patients tell me I don't charge enough. And I'm like, well, maybe in the future I'll raise my rates. But right now I feel comfortable with this. And so I say, when you are selling packages, like I had a consultation call today, and a lot of people that call me are just ready, which is really nice. Those are the nice conversion calls. But then there are the people who are kind of on the edge, and you have to just, ask, why did you call me? And, they can give you an answer of, this is why I called. I've tried this. And now a lot of times I'm last resort, right? And it's like, okay, well, how much is your health worth to you? And, you don't want to word it that aggressively, I don't think. But, it's just kind of one of those of like, how much is it worth to be able to get down on the ground and play with your kids again? Or how much is it worth to be able to join that league again where all your friends are on and now you're out for 6 weeks and your social life is in the dumps? It's so surprising how much physical health affects mental health and just affects you as a person. So I think if you can really translate that to whoever you're selling to or whoever your patient is, it's a service, it's a good. I struggled a little bit with almost feeling guilty for charging my patients because I enjoy what I do. But the value is there. I mean, we went to school for 7 years for this. A lot of people don't know that, but 7 years, long time, and you learn a lot. Yeah, so I say that that's really how I've been selling my packages. Is that first call is really, what are our goals? We're going to be super direct. We're going to be very specific. We're not going to beat around the bush. It's not going to be, kind of that vague program. We're going to get right to the point. And I'm able to do a lot of really specific things with dry needling and soft tissue and all that. So which is just helps. It's really good supplements. And yeah, it's been working out great so far. So yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I love all of that stuff that you brought up, and I cannot emphasize it enough. Like the whole like niching down thing and picking a specific target market. Like you cannot just say, I'm selling physical therapy and like I can help relieve pain, because who cares?
Right.
Like, you can get that anywhere. And like you said, like when you position yourself in such a way and you have a specific offer where through physical therapy, you can provide a specific result that helps to give people like the desired outcome in their life that they want,
Mhm.
it's going to be worth it to pay for. And like when you show them how you've helped people in the past, like just like them, and you can show them how those other people now have like the dream life that they're hoping to have, getting back to playing tennis and pickleball with their friends again, of course, it's a no-brainer to make that purchase.
Right, right. Yeah, I think you just have to put it in perspective is, every service good that anybody's selling, you can sell it as just exactly what it is, but it honestly, no one's buying it for the thing. No one likes physical therapy. Honestly, in my opinion, if you can sell physical therapy, you can sell anything. Because
Yeah.
if you're selling pain, you're selling uncomfortable, you're selling an hour where you're like, oh, this is not the best thing in the world. And so it's really, really important. You've got to sell the outcome. It's like, what are the benefits? What are you actually gaining from this? That was a mindset shift I had to make because I was like, oh, it's just physical therapy. No, but it's really all the other things is not coming back, not having to rely on someone forever, not having pain every day when you wake up in the morning. It's is invaluable. And when you can create something that has value and make it invaluable, you can sell anything. So
Yeah, absolutely. And when you can sell anything, you never have to work for anybody else ever again.
exactly.
It's a beautiful thing. Um, and let's see, like continuing down the road of mindset-y type stuff.
Mhm.
I know for you, like your just like personal tagline sort of has to do with grit, Samantha. Tell
Yes.
us more about grit and what it means and how you incorporate it into your life.
Yeah. So learned this a year ago. I read this book. It was called Grit by Angela Duckworth, and it is an incredible book. Everybody should read it, especially if you're in business or you own your own thing. Definitely link that below, or however you do that.
Yeah.
But the book was about how it doesn't matter, it's really not the smartest person in the room. It's not the person who speaks the best or wears the nicest things or is the most outgoing. It's really the person with the most grit. And the book goes through this whole process of how they measure it and all these things. And they found that people who had the most resolve, who could just keep going, keep going, keep going, those actually were the people who were their most successful. And they've adapted this to college applications, military applications. They're not looking for the best and the brightest per se, but really the people who never give up. Who can come through adversity and not be squashed or really kind of look at it from what did we learn versus, oh my gosh, I'm never going to do that again, that was awful. And so I say that for me, I've never been the smartest person in the room. I was never the smartest in PT school or the most outgoing or the best in clinic or anything like that. Like I was always kind of like that top middle, right? But I felt like the one thing that I could do is I could go over and over and over and over again and just never give up. And I really just apply that to everything in my life. And I feel like that's what has gotten me to where I am, where sometimes I have to take a step back and, like you said earlier, celebrate your wins and be proud of where I am. But a lot of the times it's just because I can always push the envelope. And I just kind of look at it from as soon as you get comfortable, all right, what's next? It's when you're comfortable in your life with everything. And maybe this is a chaotic way to live my life, but as soon as I get as soon as I get comfortable with everything, I'm like, okay, I have to push something. I have to get a little bit uncomfortable because in that area where you're uncomfortable, that's where you're learning. That's where you're growing. That's where, yeah, it's not the most fun sometimes, but then that's where opportunities come from. That's where I'm like, oh, I'm so glad I did that. Even though it was a pain in the butt at the time, I'm so glad I did that because now I can put that on my resume or I can say I learned something from that experience. And honestly, just getting comfortable being wrong, making mistakes, getting said no to, not fun. I really struggle with it still to this day, but just really getting comfortable with sometimes like it's not that big of a deal. It's just life. I'm gonna wake up tomorrow, hopefully. So, yeah, just kind of why not? Why not put your name in the hat? Why not ask that person, why not reach out? What's the worst they're going to say? No, you're stupid. Maybe that's a little hurtful, but at the end of the day, you just got to keep pushing. And so, yeah, that's why I love that term so much. It's just having grit, something I never thought about until last year. But I was like, wow, that's it. You don't have to be the best. And then it's just so easily attainable for anybody. Anybody can have grit. Anybody can say yes over and over and over and over again, which is why I love it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And like that's something that like it resonates a lot for me as well, like personally and professionally, the never give up attitude. And like one of my favorite words that I know like one of my previous coaches had told me that like he liked about the way that I approach things is that I'm relentless about them.
Mhm.
And like it's the same kind of thing where you just keep showing up and showing up and doing it and doing it and doing it, until you get to where you want. And I think that, well, I definitely want to read that book, but like I've talked to Taylor about this, Taylor, my marketing assistant and our marketing coach in the program, where we've looked for like what are like the like qualities or characteristics of people who are going to be most successful doing this in building a business. And grit is definitely one of them. Being relentless in the pursuit of your goals has to be another one, because the people who do not succeed, for lack of a better term, are the ones who stop showing up, and they also don't make any decisions. Making a
Yeah.
decision,
Mhm.
even if it's not the right decision, just being decisive and like
Right.
experiencing the thing and then figuring it out later, that is going to help you get where you want to go so much faster than like if you just stop showing up, or it's like very, chaotic negative way, just like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and like putting out this energy that you're not serious about what it is that you want to do, and like the same way that we train for sports and fitness, like you have to be
Right.
put on a regular routine in order to train yourself to like compete or do whatever sport it is. I think it's the same thing with business, is that you have to keep showing up. You have to have grit, you have to be relentless, you have to make decisions, and for an extended period of time. You also have to have
Right.
the endurance
Mhm.
to, find your success at the end of it.
Yeah, and I love that you said endurance there, because that is so true. It is so easy, and honestly, for the people listening to this podcast, it is so easy to go online and see someone who's done it, right? And you look at one post and you read it and you're like, wow, like anyone can do this. I could do this, right? And you can, right? But then you do it, and 2 weeks later you're like, this is impossible. And that person who posted that post has been doing it for 10 years. And it takes time, it takes time to get there. And I hate it. I hate that. I hate that. Don't tell me to be patient. Don't tell me it takes time. That is really, really frustrating for me, but it is so true. And someone, actually a colleague of mine said this the other day, is she owns a bunch of like stretching companies around the area. And she said, number one, yes, is being valuable and what you can provide to people. But then people are also looking to see if you keep doing it. There are people watching, if you give up in 2 months, or if you do it for a year, or there are those people who honestly kind of wait and say, oh, now, okay, she's been doing it for a year. Oh, she's really committed. Now I can really trust. Like now, that authenticity or that drive is really showing. But yeah, she told me that, and that really helped me a little bit, because sometimes you always question yourself a little bit of, is this exactly what I need to be doing? Is this the right thing? At the end of the day, yes, I do believe that, but sometimes it's a little shaky. But when she said that, that was really helpful, kind of put it in perspective of everyone's watching, even if you don't know, everyone's looking to see if you're going to keep showing up. And when you do, then that just makes you a reliable person. People were going to trust you a lot more because you're driven and this is what you want to do. And you're married to this. So, and then those are the people that they're going to come kind of out of the woodwork. And that's why the first year is so hard, because you have to show up every day, even when it's hard. And those people are watching and you don't want to fail.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it's going to work out. It is.
Yeah. And I think, this maybe kind of gets into like the marketing stuff as well. It's what you're saying about like showing up every day and continuing to do the thing for an extended period of time. I think about that in terms of like the context of like for me doing CrossFit 5 days a week and you playing tennis
Yeah.
100 days a week. right? Like you live and breathe the thing that you are trying to help people with. And like that lends itself, obviously, of course, so much to like the authenticity of it. But it also like it shows people that like you're committed to like doing the healthy thing. If they want to work with you, they also have to be like of the same attitude, and I think it'll help eventually, like in the end, help you get better leads because you're going to put vibes out there that you're looking for people who are serious about tennis. Like they're serious
sure.
about exercising rather than people who are like 1 foot in and 1 foot out. And like if you approach your business in a way where you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out, you're going to come into contact with people who are 1 foot in and 1 foot out, and it's going to be frustrating. And so like that commitment to yourself is so key.
And let me flip the table, but let me ask you a question. So
Okay.
I was reading this the other day, and I thought it was really interesting. Physical therapy is a very interesting career path, right? Because you're kind of like a preacher. You're a therapist. You're a friend. You're a motivator. You're a coach. How important do you think it is for a physical therapist to show up every day for themselves as well? Like you invest in your own health. You're active. Things like that. Do you think that person themselves, even in an outpatient or in a hospital, is not treating themselves well?
I wonder if we saw the same social media post because I just
Mhm.
saw something about this. I
Yeah.
forget who put it up, but yeah. So like the question is like how important is it for a physical therapist like to commit to their own health? Essentially, I think it's 100% important.
Mhm.
I do not think that I could sit there and tell somebody to sleep better, eat better, manage their stress, do their rehab, work out if I was not actively trying to do those things myself.
Right.
I don't think that it is like you don't have much integrity if you're doing things
Mhm.
like that. It doesn't make sense to me. And it's so interesting because I did have an experience where somebody who I have worked with in the past, I remember asking them if they were talking to one of their patients who had just left the clinic about things like sleep and diet
Mhm.
and how that like factored into their evaluation process. And they told me like, well, I don't do those things for myself as a
Mhm.
PT, so I'm not going to talk to the patient about it. But it's so important.
That's scary.
Like the
To be
science
honest.
tells us it's important. Oh.
Yeah, that is definitely like, oh, that's hard to hear,
Yeah.
because you are a physical therapist and people value you based on PT as a whole, you know what I mean? And so I'm never shooting for the downfall of another PT. Like I want everyone to be the best because I want
Right.
to be proud of what I do. And that requires everyone being being a good physical therapist. And yeah, that's hard sometimes when you do have colleagues like that, or people who are kind of like half doing it. It's a
Yeah.
little frustrating when you are so passionate about what PT can be for somebody else.
Right. Yeah.
Mhm.
And so like at least for me personally, that's how I approach things. And like, with the group of people that I work with in the CrossFit realm and fitness athlete realm, that's like part of my motivation with continuing to like work out as often
Mhm.
as I do because like I know for a fact people have hired me as a PT because I'm in class with them.
Right.
They
Yeah.
know like me. They know that I speak the same language that they do and they
Mhm.
understand the sport that they're doing. And they also know that I'm not, as a PT, I'm not going to listen to their story about how they hurt themselves doing CrossFit and be like, well, like you shouldn't be doing CrossFit, duh.
Right.
Which like I unfortunately have had so many like patients tell me that previous PTs have told them when
Mhm.
statistically there are less injuries in CrossFit than there are in football and I want to say basketball, like team
Really.
sports. Yeah, it's a sport. Like people get injured and people want to work with somebody who they can relate to. So like it's
Mhm.
important to do the thing that you're trying to help people with or at least become so familiar with it that you can speak the same language and understand where they're coming from. Also why I at least twice a week, if not 3 times, like I show up to the gym early and I do my own stupid rehab, because like if I'm expecting other people to do their own home programs, I sure as heck better do it.
Right.
So
That is
that's my
so key.
opinion.
No, I love
Some
that. I was just curious when I saw that post, and I was like, I can see how people could take that the wrong way, but I just think, especially in this industry, you gotta practice what you preach, or you don't understand it. You know, for me, sometimes I'll just go to the gym and I'll just go in the free weight room and just kind of mess around and just like try different movements and see how it feels, just so I can be better at cueing of like, oh, this is where you're supposed to feel it. This is what you're supposed to do. And sometimes just going in and doing that is even helpful for my practice. Got to practice what you preach. I agree with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you don't have to be perfect at it, like taking care of a human body is hard with all the other things that are going on and just like the life experience of being a human. Like there's a lot happening. Your health and fitness is probably not going to be perfect, but just like showing up every day will make a huge difference.
Agreed.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah, we're on the same page. I figured, but I was just curious because I saw that and I thought that was an interesting post for sure.
Yeah, it is. I think there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. But and like the other thing I was gonna say too is like something else that I believe in is when it comes to like charging for your services, you should be willing to also pay that as a patient yourself. Because like I've talked to other practice owners and like they've told me probably at least a couple of times now, they're like, oh well, nobody's gonna pay cash to me. Why would they pay for my service? They can get it for free like somewhere else. Like why would they come and see me? And they're like in the middle of opening a business. And I'm just like, well, if you don't think they're going to pay you and like you wouldn't pay for the same service, like you're right. Nobody's going to pay for it.
Right. Yeah. How are you going to sell something you don't even believe in?
Right.
That's impossible.
Yeah. Like I don't know. I know that there are people in sales, who sell things that they don't necessarily want to use, but I think for like a lot of us with what we're doing, we are selling something that we believe in. So it's like a very like weird thing that can happen. So yeah, it's a lot of just like leading with integrity.
And I think that shows in the end of the day, if you believe in your product and you know it works, I mean, I think that is really important. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there are some people who, sell like whatever, but I feel like especially for physical therapy or something for healthcare, if you really don't think that your product works or something like that, it shows. I mean, and it shows in the way you treat and it shows in the way you show up and you're a professional. And whenever, I've had coworkers and outpatient, they don't I truly believe that they don't believe in physical therapy and they're out there doing it every day. Because it shows in how they treat their patients and how they show up and their documentation even. And, you can tell. And as a patient, you can tell who's really showing up and who really believes in PT and who believes in overcoming the challenges and who doesn't. And I think that is so important to have. If you're going out on your own, I would assume that you're passionate enough about PT to start your own clinic. And that's just step number one.
Yeah. Absolutely. Leading from a place of passion is also like a really powerful motivator. Because I'm sure people can argue with this, but like I think like you have to love what you do. You have to. Otherwise, like how are you going to keep showing up?
Right. Yeah. My parents kind of raised me. My dad hated his job. My mom loved her job. And they both, the same lesson was love what you do and the money will come. And that really helped me start my own business as well. Because I was like, okay, love what you do and the money will come. Like, if I can build something that I really believe in and I believe in the mission and I believe I can help people, then it will work out. Just got to get through all this first. Get out of the trenches in the first year. And that's what everyone's been telling me. They're like, just get through the first year. Once you're out of the first year, it's better.
I kind of like look at it too as like almost like you're in a video game where like every year you like unlock a new level and there's more challenges to face.
Right.
Which is a great time. Yeah. And so as we're wrapping up this interview, Samantha, what advice would you have for somebody who they're like wanting to start their own practice, but they're just like nervous and worried about it?
It sounds so crazy, but just do it. I mean, I am a doer. So I was on the edge and, I honestly called Morgan with the intention of like, this is what I'm going to do. And then when she was like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah. And then she's like, well, why don't you just quit? Okay, I'm going to. I had kind of already, I think in my head, in my subconscious had already kind of decided that's what was going to happen. But the way I looked at it was it's not so serious, and sometimes like we take life so seriously and I'm a very serious person, don't get me wrong. And I'm very intense, but I try to take a step back and it was like, if I have on a truly 80 years to live, and and I want to do all these things. I was like, is this job going to let me do all of those things? And it was no. I mean, it was impossible to take PTO. I was exhausted by Thursday. I was missing out on a lot of stuff. And I was like, well, I'm never going to be as young as I am now, whether that's 25, 35, 45. I'm never going to know as little as I do right now. And when I kind of took a step back and looked at it that way, I was like, why not? If it goes south, just get another PT job. There's so many out there. My gosh, like population's getting older, PTs are needed. So it's like, why not just try for a year? I would say year minimum though. Definitely if I'm giving advice, do not give yourself 3 months. Don't give yourself 6 months. It's too little. Make yourself take a year. And then after that year, if it just doesn't work out, then honestly, you probably learned enough skills in other aspects of this business building where you don't have to go back to outpatient if you don't want to do that, or acute care or whatever you were doing. You can, I'm building a website for someone right now. That's something I learned building a business. And so it's not, it's not the end of the world. And, don't take it so seriously. It sounds so shallow. And I understand there are people in different circumstances and you have to think about other things, but just take a step back. Think, will I be disappointed in 20 years that I didn't do it? And if the answer is yes, then do it. Yeah, do it. Take a year. And what's the worst that can happen, honestly? So that's the advice I would give. It's just make the leap, do it.
I love that. I also love that is the number one piece of advice that every single guest gives. Yes.
What is it? I'm thinking of Nike, but right now it's the March Madness women's finals, and it's like it was never a long shot. I love that with Caitlin Clark. I don't know if you've seen that, where the banner just said it was never a long shot. I was like, oh, I love that. And so, and if you can think about it that way, is believe in yourself. You have the passion. You have the drive. You're smart enough to do it. It was never a long shot. So in 5 years, you can say that, but you gotta take the first step. And that's the scary as hell part. 5 minutes every day, I freaked out for like 4 weeks, and then I would be okay for the rest of the day. But those 5 minutes were a little bit scary. And I remember listening to these podcasts. I'm like, oh, everyone's so blasé. They're just saying that. You kind of have to do it. And if you hear it enough, maybe you'll believe it. Yeah, it's worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I love the, like what's the worst thing that could happen? And like the newer thing that I've been like asking people to when they say that, or like I say that, like what's the worst that could happen? You get a PT job. But like think about what if the best thing happens?
Right.
Like instead of worrying about like whatever, like not getting a zillion patients right away, what if you have the best time of your life?
Right.
And like it's just you're gonna make so many friends. It's just the best time.
It's great. And you find a new community in it, to be honest. It's like, and now I have entrepreneurship friends from all, not just PT, but everywhere,
Yeah.
And it's so fun because then you get in these communities and you're like, oh my God, so many people do this. Like, how did I think that I couldn't do this? Like anyone can do this. And so, and then it's like, the more you get in it, you're like, oh, well, now I can do this and now I can do that. And I will just say the best thing that can happen is you get your 24 hours a day back. That is number one. I was living on 5 hours a day back then. And now I have 24 hours every single day. And it's just like the year is better. I experience more things. I go do things with my friends. I go play tennis in the middle of the day. I honestly have a better relationship with my dog. Like I just like, it is better.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So that would be my advice is just do it. Nike.
Yeah. If Nike wants to sponsor this podcast,
there you go.
You can send me an email. And last thing, Dr. Ritz, is self-promo time. So if anybody wants to learn more about what you do or reach out to you, where can they find you?
Yes. So I have a Instagram, Dr. Sam, the Function PT, where I post a lot of my stuff. I also have a TikTok, which is Dr. Sam, the Function PT as well. And I'm building my YouTube, so it doesn't have a lot right now, but it's the same. So definitely subscribe there. And then I'm also launching my first ever course in 2 weeks for tennis elbow. So that will be posted across all my platforms. If you have any questions about that or you want any more information on it, make sure just to reach out to me, DM, comment on anything, and I'll get right back to you. That's where you can find me. I also have my website, functionalphysicaltherapy.com. If you want to book a discovery call with me or anything like that, know where to find me.
Cool. Awesome. And thank you so much for being here today, Sam.
Of course. It was honestly such a pleasure to see you again. And thank you so much for having me. Really full circle for me today.
I know. It's so cool. Oh my gosh. Well, awesome. And thank you everybody for watching, for listening, and joining us on another riveting episode of this wonderful show. And yeah, if you want any help with anything business-wise, feel free to reach out to me, morganmeese.com, and we'll get you squared away. So we'll see you on the next episode. Goodbye.